Have you ever thought about how something as simple as a spoonful of instant coffee became a lifesaver for millions of people every single morning? In a world obsessed with complicated coffee rituals where everyone seems to own a $2,000 espresso, machine and latte art feels like a competitive sports. Instant coffee is quietly making a comeback. But here's the thing. Instant coffee isn't just a shortcut for people in a hurry. It's a story of innovation, science, and convenience that goes back over a century. The truth is, what sits in your jar today is the result of decades of improvements and some pretty amazing technology. So, before you take your next sip, let's pull back the curtain and see how this everyday miracle is made in a modern factory. Because what you're about to learn will completely change the way you look at that humble little granule floating in your mug. Instant coffee didn't start as the smooth, rich brew we know today. In fact, its first versions were barely drinkable. The earliest attempts date back to the late 18th century when someone figured out that you could brew coffee, dry it into a powder, and rehydrate it later. Sounds great in theory, but the execution? Not so much. Imagine sipping on a drink that smelled like burned paper and tasted like disappointment. Still, even back then, the idea of quick coffee had an undeniable appeal. People wanted convenience, even if it meant compromising on taste. And convenience, as history shows, always finds a way to win. Fast forward to 1901. When a Japanese chemist named Satoru Kato introduced a better method to make instant coffee, it was a huge step forward, but it wasn't perfect yet. Then came 1938, a game-changing year for the coffee industry. Nestlé introduced Nescafé, a brand that turned instant coffee into a household name worldwide. But what really cemented its place in history was World War II. Soldiers on the front lines needed caffeine, and they needed it fast. Instant coffee was light, easy to carry, and didn't require any fancy brewing equipment. It became a battlefield essential, offering comfort in a cup when everything else was chaos. Many soldiers were so hooked that even after the war, they kept drinking it, proving instant coffee wasn't just a passing trend. It was here to stay. But then came the era of coffee snobbery. Espresso machines, single-origin beans, cold brews. Pour-overs. It felt like every cup had to come with a side of complicated. Suddenly, instant coffee was treated like the awkward cousin at the family reunion. Sitting quietly while everyone raved about microlots and barista competitions. People started chasing coffee experiences instead of just coffee. Yet here's the twist: instant coffee didn't just disappear. It evolved. Today, it's back with a vengeance, thanks to modern freeze-drying techniques and premium blends that actually taste good. We're talking smooth, rich flavors that rival your favorite cafe without the wait, the mess, or the $6 price tag. Instant coffee has gone from being a quick fix to a smart choice for people who want convenience without compromise. So how exactly does this little miracle come to life? It all starts on lush coffee farms scattered across the coffee belt, a stretch of land wrapping around the globe near the equator, covering Latin America, Africa, and parts of Asia. These regions have the perfect combination of sunlight, rain, and altitude to produce top-quality beans. For instant coffee, manufacturers primarily use two types of beans, Robusta and Arabica. Robusta is the workhorse, strong, bold, packed with caffeine, and naturally resistant to pests and disease. Its earthy, slightly bitter flavor holds up well during processing, which makes it the preferred choice for most instant coffee. Arabica, on the other hand, is the fancy cousin. It's smoother, more aromatic, and carries delicate notes of sweetness. While it's more expensive and harder to grow, some premium instant coffee blends include Arabica for added depth and complexity. Harvesting these beans is an art in itself. On smaller farms producing high-quality beans, workers handpick cherries, one by one, making sure only the ripest ones are selected. It's labor-intensive, but ensures the best flavor. Large commercial farms often use machines to strip cherries from the trees faster. Yes, but less selective. Once harvested, the cherries go through one of two processing methods, wet or dry. Wet processing, also called washed processing, involves fermenting and washing the beans to remove the sticky pulp, producing a bright, clean flavor. It's commonly used for Arabica beans. Dry processing, on the other hand, means spreading the cherries out under the sun to dry naturally, a slower method that gives the beans a fuller, fruitier profile, typical of Robusta. Regardless of the method, quality control is strict. Any defective or damaged beans that could ruin the taste are removed before moving on. After processing, the beans are dried, sorted, and graded by size, weight, and quality. Then, they're packed into large jute or plastic-lined bags to protect them from moisture and pests before being shipped to factories worldwide. When they arrive, they go through another round of quality checks, this time using cutting-edge technology like infrared scanners and AI-based sorting machines that can detect even the smallest imperfections. Only the best beans make it through, because consistency is everything. When you open that jar of instant coffee, you expect the same taste every single time, and these checks guarantee just that. Now comes the magic of transformation. Raw coffee beans are green, hard, and smell more like grass than coffee. To bring out the flavor we love, they need to be roasted, and this is where science meets art. The beans are roasted in massive industrial roasters, either rotary drum roasters or fluidized bed roasters, which evenly heat the beans to temperatures between 180 degrees Celsius and 240 degrees Celsius. That's about 356 degrees Fahrenheit to 464 degrees Fahrenheit for 8 to 15 minutes. As they heat, the beans undergo dramatic changes in color, aroma, and chemical composition. This is when the Maillard reaction kicks in, a process where sugars and amino acids combine to create hundreds of complex flavor compounds. It's what gives coffee its caramel-like sweetness, nutty undertones, and those rich, chocolatey notes. Meanwhile, pyrolysis, the breakdown of organic matter from heat, releases oils and gases, intensifying that irresistible coffee aroma. Roasting is a delicate balancing act. Go too light, and the coffee will taste flat and sour. Roast too long, and it turns harsh and bitter. Instant coffee usually gets a medium to dark roast because it needs a bold, full-bodied flavor that holds up even after processing and dissolves easily in water. Once the beans hit the perfect roast level, they have to be cooled quickly to stop the cooking process. Factories use forced air or a fine water mist to cool the beans within seconds, locking in the flavor and aroma. Next comes grinding. Regular ground coffee can vary in size depending on the brew method, but instant coffee requires an ultra-fine grind, most like flour or powdered sugar. Why? Because the finer the grind, the better the extraction of flavor and aroma in the next step. Industrial roller mills or hammer mills crush the beans with incredible precision, handling massive quantities in minutes while maintaining consistency across every batch once ground. The coffee goes through an extraction process similar to brewing, but on an industrial scale. Giant percolators, some as tall as a building, flood the grounds with hot water under carefully controlled temperatures and pressures to pull out every bit of soluble flavor. What you get at this stage is an extremely strong liquid coffee concentrate. But here's the problem. Liquid coffee spoils quickly. To make it shelf-stable, factories remove almost all the water using one of two methods: spray drying or freeze drying. Spray drying involves spraying the coffee concentrate into a stream of hot air inside a tall tower. As the droplets fall, the water evaporates, leaving behind tiny, dry coffee particles. It's fast and cost-effective, but the high heat can sometimes dull the flavor. Freeze drying, on the other hand, is like coffee's VIP treatment. The concentrate is frozen solid, then broken into granules and placed in a vacuum chamber where the ice turns directly into vapor, skipping the liquid stage. This process preserves more of the coffee's aroma and flavor, which is why premium brands often use it. The result: crisp, lightweight granules that dissolve instantly when you add water. After drying, the granules are sifted to ensure uniform size, then packed into airtight jars or single-served packets. Oxygen and moisture are the enemies of coffee. So modern. Packaging includes nitrogen flushing to keep the coffee fresh and flavorful for months. Finally, it's shipped out to stores, ready to rescue you on busy mornings, late-night study sessions, or long road trips. Imagine waking up late for work, rushing to get ready, and still craving that rich coffee taste without waiting for a drip machine to do its job. That's when instant coffee comes to the rescue. A quick stir, a little hot water, and in seconds, you've got a steaming cup that smells like heaven and kicks your day into gear. But have you ever wondered what makes instant coffee so convenient, consistent, and surprisingly flavorful? Behind that tiny spoonful of powder is an incredible story of technology, precision, and craftsmanship. It's not just some random powder, it's the result of decades of innovation and processes that rival any high-end cafe in terms of science and care. Let's dive deep into the fascinating journey of how your instant coffee is made. From grinding beans to that first comforting sip, it all starts with something most of us take for granted: the grind. If coffee particles are too big, your drink will taste weak and bland because the flavor compounds won't fully dissolve in water. On the flip side, if they're too fine, the result can be overly bitter or even burnt tasting. Getting it just right is an art, and factories don't leave that to chance. They use advanced tools like laser analyzers and sieve tests to check and adjust particle size down to the smallest detail. This isn't about guesswork. It's about engineering flavor, consistency, so that no matter where you buy your coffee, every cup tastes familiar, smooth, and easy to dissolve. Even tiny variations in grind size can change the entire flavor profile, which is why consistency is non-negotiable in this process. But grinding isn't as simple as it sounds. Friction created during grinding can heat the beans, and that heat can damage delicate aromas and natural oils, stripping coffee of its soul. To prevent this, many premium brands use a technique called cryogenic grinding. Sounds futuristic, right? It basically means the coffee beans are cooled with liquid nitrogen or carbon dioxide before grinding, keeping them ice cold. This prevents heat buildup and preserves the beans' natural oils and rich fragrance, resulting in a final product that tastes fresher and more vibrant. It might seem like an extra step, but for coffee lovers who crave that fresh brewed taste from instant coffee, this step is essential. So yes, behind that effortless cup you make in 30 seconds is a level of science that sounds straight out of a lab once the beans are perfectly ground. The next step is brewing on. This is where things get really interesting. Unlike your quick coffee pot at home, industrial brewing is a marathon, not a sprint. It's designed to extract maximum flavor, caffeine, and aroma from the coffee grounds, and it takes hours to complete. Huge percolators or high-pressure extraction tanks are used. And here's the twist. Water is heated to temperatures between 150 degrees Celsius and 180 degrees Celsius. That's 302 degrees Fahrenheit to 356 degrees Fahrenheit. Much hotter than your home brewer. Then it's forced through the coffee. Under controlled pressure, this combination of heat and pressure draws out the richest, boldest flavors, creating a concentrated coffee extract. But it's not just about cranking up the heat and letting it run. Every second counts. Timing, temperature, and filtration need to be perfectly balanced to avoid bitterness and keep the coffee smooth. The brewing process happens in stages to capture the best of both worlds: the bright, fruity, floral notes in the early stages and the deep, chocolatey, bold flavors in the later stages. When these layers are combined, the result is a coffee concentrate that's both complex and balanced, rich enough to taste amazing but not harsh or overwhelming. At this point, though, the concentrate is extremely strong, way too intense to drink, so it needs more processing before becoming that convenient powder, you know? And here's something cool. The leftover coffee grounds from brewing don't just go in the trash. Many factories are now committed to sustainability, so those used grounds find new life in unexpected ways. Some are converted into biofuel to help power the factory, reducing energy use and cutting down the carbon footprint. Others are turned into compost for farms, adding nutrients back into the soil for future coffee crops. Believe it or not, some even end up in skincare products because coffee grounds make an amazing natural exfoliant. So the next time you scrub your face with a coffee-infused product, it might just be part of your morning brew that's been given a second life. Pretty amazing, right? Now comes the magic step that transforms coffee from a liquid concentrate into those familiar granules: drying. Factories use two main methods: spray drying and freeze drying. Spray drying is the workhorse of the industry because it's fast, cost-effective, and perfect for making large volumes. Here's how it works. The coffee concentrate is sprayed into a chamber filled with hot air at around 250 degrees Celsius, about 482 degrees Fahrenheit. The heat instantly evaporates the water, leaving behind fine particles of dried coffee. These particles fall to the bottom of the chamber, ready for the next step. While spray drying is efficient, the high heat can burn off some of the delicate flavors, which is why premium brands often skip this and go for a slower, more expensive method: freeze drying. Freeze drying is coffee's luxury treatment. First, the coffee extract is frozen at around -40 degrees Celsius, -40 degrees Fahrenheit, turning it into solid slabs. These slabs are then placed in a vacuum chamber where something incredible happens. The ice inside doesn't melt into water. Instead, it skips that stage and turns directly into vapor, a process called sublimation. By avoiding the liquid stage, freeze drying preserves the coffee's natural oils, flavors, and aroma. This is why high-end instant coffee brands often taste almost like freshly brewed coffee. It's more time-consuming and costly, but for coffee purists who want quality without the wait, it's worth every second. Once the drying is done, the coffee particles go through agglomeration. That might sound like a complicated word, but it simply means that tiny particles are steam-treated to stick together into larger granules. Why? Because larger uniform granules dissolve better in water and prevent clumping. Also gives instant coffee that familiar coarse texture, making it look appealing and easier to handle. Without this step, you'd have a jar full of fine dust that clumps together, a nightmare for your morning rush. Finally, it's time for packaging, but even that isn't as simple as tossing the coffee into a jar. Instant coffee is extremely sensitive to moisture and oxygen, which can ruin the flavor and cause clumping. To prevent this, factories use vacuum-sealed jars, foil pouches, resealable bags, or single-serve sachets. Some premium brands go even further with nitrogen flushing, replacing oxygen inside the packaging with nitrogen to keep the coffee fresh for months. After that, labels are applied with details like roast level, blend type, and expiration date, so customers know exactly what they're getting. Before these packages make it to the shelves, they go through strict quality checks. X-ray scanners and metal detectors ensure no foreign particles made their way inside. And random samples are tested for taste, aroma, and solubility. Once cleared, the products are stacked on pallets, wrapped for protection, and shipped off to stores, warehouses, and even directly to your doorstep. Think about that for a second. From the moment the beans are ground to the second the box arrives at your door, instant coffee goes through a journey that combines old-world tradition with cutting-edge technology. It's a perfect example of convenience meeting quality. And it's why, even in a world obsessed with fancy coffee shops and high-end espresso machines, Instant coffee continues to hold its ground. It's quick, affordable, and reliable land. That's exactly what busy workers, college students, and travelers need. Plus, it's way cheaper than your $6 latte and still satisfies that caffeine craving in seconds. Over the years, instant coffee has undergone a serious glow up. It used to have a reputation for being flat and flavorless, but modern techniques like freeze-drying have changed the game. Today, you can find premium blends, organic options, and even flavored varieties that rival your favorite cafe drinks. It's also incredibly practical, has long shelf life and easy storage. Make it a staple for everything from office kitchens to camping trips and even emergency kits. The industry isn't standing still either, from eco-friendly packaging to fair trade sourcing and even instant cold brews. Instant coffee is constantly evolving to meet consumer demand without losing its biggest strength: simplicity. Next time you scoop that golden granule into your mug, take a second to appreciate the science, care, and innovation behind it. That quick caffeine fix is more than convenience, it's a story of precision and passion in every sip. And if you found this journey as fascinating as we did, give this video a thumbs up. Your thumb gets a workout, and we get the love. Haven't subscribed yet? Seriously, what are you waiting for? Hit that button and join the Process Powerhouse family. Got a factory process you're curious about? Drop it in the comments. We might just make it happen. No promises on a conveyor belt. Cameo, though.